McGraw-Hill Ascent Audio presents The Anatomy of a Turnaround, Transforming an Organization by Prioritizing People, Performance, and Purpose, by Paul Kusserow. Narrated by L.J. Ganser. For everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. Forward. I first met Paul Kusserow shortly after completing my two-term tenure in the U.S. Senate. The last 4 years as Majority Leader. Having spent 20 years previously in clinical medicine as a heart and lung transplant surgeon, I was now freshly embarking upon an exciting third career as an investor and partner with my friend Brian Cressy at his healthcare private equity firm, Cressy & Company. I had heard Paul's name sprinkled around in various conversations as I was getting settled and establishing myself in the private investment world. My new partner, Brian, somewhat of a legacy in his own right, spoke enthusiastically of Paul as a highly creative and original healthcare thinker with whom he liked to trade ideas. Paul's name kept coming up again and again as I sought out the best and the brightest to learn from, so I was intrigued to meet him. During the second week of January each year, there is an annual migration of healthcare companies, entrepreneurs, thought and policy leaders, all converging in San Francisco for the J.P. Morgan Conference. It's an exhilarating and exhausting whirlwind of a week, a bit of a cattle call, but always worth the time and energy spent. The event enables investors like us, within a week's time frame, to efficiently see a huge number of people, to hear and share emerging trends and ideas in the healthcare market, to meet with companies we want to know or consider for investment now or later, to follow up on the progress of companies we are tracking or invested in, as well as to connect with influencers and thought leaders. The Cressy team hosted meetings and interviews at the same venue every year. It's not far from the main conference site at the St. Francis Hotel on Union Square. More action happens outside and around the St. Francis than inside. Investors like us schedule hundreds of back-to-back meetings, attend seminars, host networking dinners, learn about current industry trends, evaluate upcoming company leaders, search for investment opportunities, and touch base and engage with thought leaders. JPM gets the new business year off to a fast start and sets the stage for much of the year's subsequent deal flow. As I looked at my schedule, I saw that Brian had arranged for the two of us to have an hour-long meeting with Paul. That was highly unusual. Brian and I had agreed to a divide-and-conquer approach to scheduling meetings during JPM. We wanted to use our limited time efficiently. Most meetings were short, some just a half hour. I was new to private equity, but realized that an hour was a long time for the firm's leaders to spend with a single individual whom we weren't recruiting or doing a deal with. I asked Brian why this particular meeting was so important. He responded, "Paul is well worth the time. We share perspectives and compare ideas. He's uniquely knowledgeable. Trust me, you'll see." So we met with Paul, and Brian was right. As the then head of strategy, business development, and innovations for Humana, Paul's observations on the current state of the health sector triggered a fascinating, wide-ranging, no-holds-barred discussion of people, companies, and trends. Paul's work at Humana was groundbreaking and innovative. He recognized Medicare Advantage's potential to grow Humana's footprint and revenues. He was pushing the company hard to become the industry leader in MA. At the same time, Paul was acquiring companies and quickly assembling internal capabilities to develop care management expertise, a prerequisite for running a profitable MA business. With relentless persistence, he drove Humana into value-based care well ahead of other major health insurers. Paul jokingly labeled himself Humana's intrapreneur, someone who could innovate from inside a company, even one as large and complex as Humana. Paul's vast experience and unique perspective were important to Cressy as we refined our investment thesis to embrace value-based care ourselves, and as we tried to decipher what would be realistically adopted in the markets and what was too far in the future. Paul gave us color and substance. That was the beginning of a long and enriching friendship. Our annual JPM visits continued. We often exchanged notes and shared investment ideas. Despite our consistent contact, in 2015, I was surprised when Paul called for advice on where to live in Nashville, my hometown. Paul had left his comfortable corporate strategy job at Humana and jumped into a full-blown turnaround at Amedisys, one of the industry's leading home care companies. Paul was in the process of moving Amedisys' executive functions from the company's headquarters in Baton Rouge to Nashville. The company needed a deeper and more diverse talent pool than the one that was available in Louisiana. Paul also wanted Amedisys to become a major component of Nashville's robust healthcare ecosystem. He rightly thought Nashville was the nation's mecca for healthcare services. Paul believed he and his senior leadership team would experience the region's tremendous healthcare depth and diversity by engaging with companies at all stages of development across the wide healthcare continuum that is uniquely in Nashville. He thought Amedisys needed to stretch its thinking, play on a bigger stage, and strive to shape, in partnership with others, healthcare's brave new world. There was, and is, no place better than Nashville to realize Paul's bold vision for Amedisys. When Paul moved to Nashville, we saw each other regularly. He immediately immersed himself into the vibrant healthcare community and culture. I invited Paul to become a guest on my popular A Second Opinion podcast. Prior to the show, we did research on the Amedisys turnaround. What the company had accomplished under his leadership was amazing. Beyond reinvigorating the company's financials, Paul had elevated the industry's appreciation for the long-neglected home care sector. He knew for certain that care for America's aging population was going to shift from institutions into the home because it was what consumers wanted. It generated better outcomes, and it cost much less money. He saw where it was all heading and had smartly positioned Amedisys to capitalize on this massive opportunity. Considering his background in strategy, it's not surprising that Paul recognized the trend toward home care earlier than others. What impressed me was how he turned that vision into reality. Strategists rarely excel at operations. Paul is an exception. As its CEO, he transformed Amedisys from a stagnant provider of low-skill care services into a dynamic growth company leading a revitalized and reimagined home care industry. The company's stock price surged. Everyone now understood the immense value of being able to provide quality care in the home. Even more remarkable than Amedisys' superb financial and operational performance is the manner in which Paul achieved these results. Instead of dictating the company's strategic direction from on high, he listened, inviting Amedisys' caregivers, operators, and patients to help define, refine, and execute the company's strategy. He shared with me how, in his first 3 months as CEO, he went on the road, visiting 34 care centers in 17 states, talking to patients, caregivers, administrators, office staff, referral sources, those that liked Amedisys and those that didn't. In my experience, though many talk about it, very few CEOs actually take the time to intimately meet with and understand all those involved in and touched by their organization. But Paul did, and he did it with true compassion and conviction. Through this process of patient and employee-led strategy, Amedisys rediscovered its passion and capability for providing great care, allowing it to burst forth from within. Patients responded, and the business grew. Unlocking untapped human potential generates unmatched investment returns, which is what Paul had set out to prove. People and culture-centered change saved Amedisys and transformed the company into a home care juggernaut. This is not your typical book about top-down, command-and-control CEO-as-hero leadership. Paul digs deep to reveal how human beings manifest their best selves by serving others. Treating employees well means they pay it back and go the extra mile for patients. The company prospers from everyone's collective efforts, all directed toward giving great care to patients. Paul's background and training in theology, philosophy, psychology, and literature encouraged him to use novel, human-centered approaches to drive transformation. His central leadership tenets are unique. Serve employees so they can serve customers. Listen to the marketplace for guidance. Invest from the core outward. Open the company and its strategy to all stakeholders. Find the answers to tough challenges inside the company. Stage transformation systematically. Find hidden value in discarded or overlooked investments. Celebrate employees when they leave. And most importantly, golden rule management practices always and everywhere. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Or as Paul says, treat everyone like they are your mom. These strategies work. Look at the results. Paul's informative, insightful, and entertaining narrative engages readers and teaches us principles that transcend business. Following his lessons will not only cultivate better business leaders, but also nurture better human beings. As Paul told me, I've become a better person by being a caregiver, learning to lead by serving, listening, and enabling. It is fascinating to follow Paul's journey throughout the anatomy of a turnaround. I hope that more companies will employ his principles to achieve Amedisys-like success for their organizations. Senator Bill Frist, Maryland. Former Majority Leader of the U.S. Senate, founding partner of Frist Cressy Ventures, and special partner of Cressy & Company. Introduction. Seeking Truth. I have an unusual background and a set of beliefs informed by the study of theology, philosophy, and literature, as well as numerous and diverse career stops in multiple industries. This book not only chronicles Amedisys' successful turnaround and repositioning, it also incorporates life and leadership lessons that I learned on my way to the corner office. These hard-earned lessons have molded me as an individual, citizen, and CEO. By most objective accounts, I was a very successful CEO. During my first time in the Amedisys captain's chair, I helped reshape a company that was falling apart to one that is now thriving and leading the expansive home care industry. Turning the company around brought us into the national spotlight and elevated the importance of home-based care in advancing healing, patient-centric care, and value creation. Across the board, the results the company has achieved during my tenure are by any measures extraordinary. You will get the specifics in the book, but here is what the company stated in the press release announcing my transition from CEO to chairman in April 2022. Amedisys under Paul Kusserow's leadership. Improved home health quality of patient care star scores from 3.5 stars to 4.33 stars, leading the industry. Migrated the entire Amedisys business to the Home Care Homebase, HCHB platform. Focused on employees and being the employer of choice, resulting in a voluntary turnover rate of approximately 18%, and landing Amedisys on Modern Healthcare's Best Place to Work list in 2021. Expanded Amedisys' lines of business from home health and hospice to home health, hospice, personal care, palliative care, hospital at home, and skilled nursing facility, SNF, at home. Invested in the hospice business, growing census from approximately 4,600 to over 13,000, and increasing the number of care centers from 80 to 177. Expanded consolidated adjusted EBITDA margin from approximately 6% to over 13%. Grew the market cap of Amedisys from $750 million to over $5.3 billion, generating substantial shareholder value. I am organically wired to fix things. The status quo is never quite good enough. This penchant for relentless improvement often makes me a difficult colleague. I was decades into my professional career before learning this about myself. Here's how it happened. Between 1997 and 2004, I was the Chief Strategy Officer for Tenet Healthcare, the nation's second-largest for-profit hospital system. As I was ending my tenure at the company, Tenet's CEO, My friend and mentor, Trevor Fetter, asked what I wanted as a farewell gift. A remarkable gesture. Trevor's generosity made an enormous difference in both my personal and my business life thereafter. As I was deciding what to request, I wrote 2 fictional obituaries. I was at a crossroads in my journey, and I had read that writing comparative obituaries was an effective way to assess one's life and career. The first assumed I had accomplished everything I wanted in life. The second assumed I got hit by a bus and died that day. The contrast was brutal. This exercise, albeit a bit corny, was very revealing. What I had been doing was not getting me anywhere close to where I wanted to go, or what I wanted to be. In fact, much of what I was doing was taking me in the opposite direction. I was on my way to becoming like Kurtz, the main character in Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. On his deathbed, Kurtz realizes that he is a hollow man as he recounts the moral lies he's told himself to justify his illicit actions. His final words are, "The horror, the horror." I was in my early 40s, and I did not want that future. I had checked the boxes everywhere else, though. I had a wonderful family. My wife, Serena, was the best partner I could imagine. Our 3 daughters were happy and healthy. We lived in a beautiful old hacienda in the middle of a lemon orchard overlooking the Pacific Ocean. But at the same time, I didn't feel that my work either suited me or was meaningful. Like Kurtz, I had good excuses for my choices. My career funded the other things that made my family's life so good. I equated much of my career decision-making to money, having enough of it, so there would be security in my life. That rationale, however, was complete nonsense. I had already made my number. Like a squirrel preparing for an endless winter, I kept maniacally foraging for income in unhappy places and frenetically packing it away. With this Kurtz-like mindset, there would never be enough. Writing the obituaries made me realize that I was unhappy with my career's progress and unenthusiastic about its future trajectory. I wondered what I would do for the next 30 years with my professional life. I needed to feel like the time and effort I was putting forth were noble and worthwhile, even if I didn't achieve all my goals. At a minimum, I wanted to be heading in the right direction. I had to understand why I'd made the choices I had, why I was stuck in jobs that I didn't particularly like, why I worked with people I found distasteful. It was time for a change. This sobering realization drove me to ask Trevor to send me to a professional development program at Harvard Business School. He agreed, and I headed off to Cambridge for a week that would change my life. As part of the program, I met several times with Jim Waldrop, a trained psychologist. Jim helped aspiring and mid-career executives increase their professional self-awareness and choose careers suited to their skills and cognitive orientation. Under Jim's guidance, I completed multiple cognitive assessment tools and developmental exercises. They were fun and interesting. As the week progressed, he asked lots of questions and listened to my responses. I called Dr. Waldrop my career shrink. On the last day of the program, Jim delivered his conclusions. He had patiently listened to my spoiled whining and agonizing as I struggled to define my place in the world. His answer was simple. He said, "You're a seeker," and then made the following observations about seekers' peculiar orientation and their consequential impact. You're never going to be happy or satisfied with the status quo. You're always going to push the boundaries of things because you believe everything, including yourself, has yet to find its true potential. You want more and more because you honestly believe there is more. You love the idea more than the reality, but you keep pushing your reality to become the ideal. That's the brutal truth about you. If you're going to stay in business, you need to be the futurist in an organization that can afford the disruption that someone like you introduces into the ranks. All places want and need change, but few admit it. You'll best fit into the places that admit they really need and want change. Some places want to hear about what they should be and where they need to get to, but change is hard. Most companies stick to the status quo as long as they possibly can. That's where you have been, and that's why you have become frustrated. Worse for you, most places are happy with where they are and spend a lot of time justifying it. Having someone like you in their ranks can be disruptive, even toxic. You will be best working in an organization that is bent on or needs transformation or is creating the future, such as a startup or a fast-growth disruptor. Or you'll need to go into places that are on fire, busted, or near dead, which need to be repositioned or turned around, where you can find a new future for them and lead them to it. You can lead at these places because there are very few people like you who love broken things and want to restore them. If you go big, you should go for broke, and make sure you're the boss. Never forget, though, that you are a seeker with a substantial amount of unrelenting will, energy, and intensity. As your companies evolve, there will be a demand for different skills and roles to be played. Same stage, different script and players that will need to adapt to the new script. That applies to you, too. Be mindful that your seeking skills will bring organizations to the right place by hook or by crook. But once they get there, you'll need to let them recover. Allow them to settle into and acclimatize to their new world. Constant radical change is not a good thing for anything or anybody. It's not sustainable, except maybe for someone like you. Dr. Waldrop smiled broadly after making his last observation. This conversation with him was immensely helpful. His characterization of me made sense. Understanding that I was a seeker gave me revelatory context for my successes and failures. His framing answered my probing questions about myself and my future. It enabled me to better position myself for new roles and opportunities. From there, my career stops included startups and venture investing, as well as strategy and innovation roles. My seeking eventually led me to Amedisys, a company that needed saving, which operated within an industry segment, home care, that required redefinition. Working at Amedisys was an amazing and transformative experience. I tested and put into work ideas and concepts that I had long believed could enrich employees' daily work and turbocharge organizational performance. These beliefs shaped long-term strategies and on-the-spot decisions. My lens and methods are different from those of traditional corporate CEOs. Employing them led Amedisys to achieve extraordinary success. There's value in understanding how this occurred. I'm a note-taker, always have been. At the end of each year, I buy the biggest, thickest moleskin date books made, and then I write everything down in them. Like a third grader, I amuse myself by using different colored pens to write out the next day's meetings. I keep my colored pens in a bright orange pencil pouch that I bought at an Italian school supplies store while hiking in the Alps near Cortina. I literally create a colorful schedule for myself in the hope that it will lead to a colorful day. More days than not, the approach works. It gets me excited and engaged for whoever and whatever is coming next. Within the Datebook's calendar, there are 2-page note sections that follow each week. I fill these sections with meeting notes, important facts, follow-ups, and to-dos, also in different colors. They become my memory. At the end of my notebook, following the last week of December, there are 33 blank pages. Over the years, I have filled these pages as well, using the exercise of writing to work out thorny problems. Think deeply about concepts and jot insights as I work through various opportunities and situations. In general, my year-end pages contain significant ideas that transcend the weekly checklists. Like the tide relative to ocean waves, these pages guide my strategic thinking, just as the checklists guide my daily activities. More often than not, these year-end pages are a ragged, unfinished collage of thoughts that point to something meaningful but do not get fully there. They are very much like a junk man's backyard, full of rows of cars on blocks. The junk man tells himself, I'm going to get them running someday. They just need some parts or extra work to get them on the road. He sees each car's potential, but the cars progressively rust as the seasons pass. They become harder to fix. I try not to let my unfinished ideas rust, but don't always succeed. The life of the mind is precious but fragile. I have about 15 notebooks and datebooks that cover my Amedisys journey. In college, I had a Pulitzer Prize-winning writing teacher who told me that there's nothing really new to say. There's not much about human nature that hasn't already been said multiple times. The question for each of us as individuals and leaders is how we apply established knowledge in ways that resonate with people, improve their understanding, ignite them in common purpose, and motivate them to act. Writing forces thoroughness. It requires us to be cogent and analytical in a way conversation does not. In conversation, we can get away with undeveloped themes and threads of ideas. Good writing, as stated in Strunk and White's classic Elements of Style, creates whole, polished ideas that stand on their own. It rounds things off and makes ideas hold together. So I write to find meaning, discover new linkages, and become a better communicator. Writing is hard work. It forces me to string thoughts and concepts together until they become complete and whole. When an idea comes out clearly, complete, and fully rounded, there is nothing more fulfilling. Writing this book has forced me to flesh out my ideas, clarify my thinking, eliminate the rust. I revisited my Amedisys notebooks, scoured them for useful ideas, and present the ideas with promise to readers. Round out the edges, locate the missing parts, fill in the holes, and see if they can leave the blocks. I did not plan to write this book. Friends, colleagues, and thought leaders repeatedly asked me to articulate and share the ideas that had worked so successfully at Amedisys. After I stepped down as CEO, several of my fellow board members, I remained board chair, as well as my wife insisted that I chronicle the company's turnaround. I couldn't do that without simultaneously digging into my own background, experiences, successes, and failures. This book blends two transformations, my own and the company's. They could not have happened in isolation. They crisscross and intersect in innumerable ways. Transformation is not a straightforward endeavor. Surprise is inevitable. Joy and pain intermingle. Knowledge is hard-won. For these reasons, I think of myself as a scribe. I chronicle Amedisys' transformation from the CEO's perch, but I do so with the humble and profound realization that our people were the real change agents. They did the hard and necessary work. I just wrote it down. In this spirit of common purpose, all book sale proceeds will go directly back to our caregivers and patients via the Amedisys Foundation. This is ultimately their story. They should gain any rewards that come from my telling it. Being Amedisys' CEO as it pivoted toward greatness was the experience of a lifetime. That's rewarding enough for me. I can't wait to share this story with you. Let's get started. 1. A CEO match made in heaven and hell. In December 2014, I became the CEO of a publicly traded healthcare company based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, called Amedisys. At the time, I was 53, and it was my first CEO job. Pretty late by most standards. I got the job because, basically, no potential CEOs worth their salt would take the position. The company was on the brink, toxic, and a real mess. Prior to my hiring, the board tried to give the company away for a song to one of our largest competitors. They refused the offer. Not being able to sell the company, the board was desperate to find a CEO willing to step into the role and try to reverse the company's fortunes. 6 months after I'd completed a consulting engagement that led to the founder CEO's resignation, after the company had run through all other options and prospective candidates, The board asked me if I would become Amedisys' new CEO. Most people's idea of me at this time was pretty uniform. Smart, quirky guy with an evangelical confidence in his ability.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?